I know we think we are made of 70% water, but my guest today will show you that we actually are made of a lot more than 70%. Dr. Catherine Clinton is on the show today, and she came and gave a masterclass on quantum biology. Now, if you're freaking out because you're like, what? What does that have to do with TCM? Well, let me tell you, we talked about the connection between fascia and the meridian in Chinese medicine, and how scientists have discovered that yes, meridian exists and the connection with the connective tissues, which is fascia. We talked about water, we talked about molecules, we talked about quantum biology, we talked about emotion and how our emotions connect to everything in our body, specifically can make our body sick at the cellular level. We covered the connection of science and Chinese medicine. It was really a podcast on ancient medicine meets modern science. You are going to love Dr. Clinton. Let's go. Welcome, Dr. Catherine Clinton, to the AcuPro Show. I'm so glad you came on because we have not officially met until right now. We connected through the world of social media, through Instagram, because you published a reel that I was tagged in by many, many acupuncturists that told me, you got to check this out. And then I discovered Dr. Catherine Clinton. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to meet you in the virtual personhood, and I'm so excited to talk today. This is going to be fun.
I think so too, because I love to bring people to the show that can teach us something that we don't know enough about or we're not really truly understanding. And this is what we're going to talk about today. You are a naturopathic doctor in Oregon, in the States. So you're on the West Coast too, but 2 states below me. And you've been practicing naturopathic medicine for 17 years, which, is fantastic. I love that. But what differentiates you from other NDs is that you're passionate about quantum biology. You are an author and you're a health educator specifically in quantum biology. So, for everybody that's listening right now, you're going to see how we can connect modern science to ancient medicine. This is why I want to talk about today the knowledge that Catherine has in quantum biology with how can we connect this with Chinese medicine. And that's what I love about connecting ancient world with modern science. So first of all, can you tell me how you got into naturopathic medicine and then how you got into that road that led you to quantum biology?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a kid and a teenager into undergrad college, I was competitive in Taekwondo and a martial art, and I was teaching as well. And one of the families that I taught was a family of a indigenous traditional midwife from Mexico. And I started assisting with her in births. And I did that for years, 6 or 7 years. And I knew pretty quickly, like on the second or third birth, this is not for me. This is like my church. It's amazing. It's incredible. But I am not a midwife. They are cut from an incredible cloth that I don't belong to. The exposure to herbal medicines, to nutrition, to mindset led me to naturopathic school. And that's where I ended up. And so I was at naturopathic medical school, and it was really long hours, really rough initiation. It was my second year, and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and Hashimoto thyroiditis and Lyme disease. I just did not have the foundation to weather the sort of initiation of med school. And I was doing clinical rotations under a physician, and she was a naturopathic physician and a Chinese medicine doctor. And she really pushed me to look at psychoneuroimmunology, a big word for how our thoughts impact our biology. and our state of health or disease. And that's where I found quantum biology. I was looking at mitochondria. I read an article from Martin Picard about how our thoughts and emotions impact our mitochondrial function. At the same time, there was exciting quantum biology research coming out of UC Berkeley looking at photosynthetic bacteria and how living systems are utilizing quantum tunneling and quantum coherence and quantum superposition. And so the quantum coherence piece of it really blew my mind. And I just sort of merged the worlds and have continued to explore the research and this emerging field of health and science and what it means to be alive.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I know some people are going to listen and they're going to go, quantum coherence. What? So I'm a big proponent of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. So I've heard this coherence coming from quantum coherence. And so I'm familiar with it, but a lot of people that listen may not be. However, before we go into explaining this, I love that the fact that in Chinese medicine, we say that obviously our emotions can make our physical body sick and it change the body at the cellular level. And we know this from a perspective of even, looking at people that have anxiety for many, many years and eventually they basically literally make a hole in the stomach called ulcers, right? You create an ulcer with your emotion. You know that this is proven. This is normal everyday life. A lot of people have ulcers coming from years of stress, anxiety, etc., which in Chinese medicine, the heart is all about all the emotion which are connected to the brain and what happened with that.
One of the things I love about quantum biology is that it does bring us full circle back to what these ancient indigenous cultures always spoke of, always revered, always utilized for health. And the idea of quantum coherence is when two or more things are working together as one, right? Two people dancing the tango, or multiple water molecules forming individual molecules, right? Forming a wave in the ocean. This idea that there can be a vibration or an oscillation that entrains a whole system. So it's moving in the same way. And that is what lays the backdrop for these quantum phenomenon to happen, right? When you get down on the quantum level, when you're talking about an electron or a photon of light or a proton, these are so small that they can do things that we can't do in this macro version of life. They can go through obstacles of heat or distance by quantum tunneling. They can take multiple paths at one time. They can entangle with another particle that is not close, right? That's a long distance away. And these things are allowed by that quantum coherence. They are allowed by multiple things vibrating, moving, oscillating in rhythm. And that to me blew my mind. And there's so many different things we could talk about. Heart coherence, Heart Math Institute, how our heart's magnetic field can entrain our own biology, the way we think, our immune system, so many different pieces of our body, as well as the magnetic fields of the people around us in the community. Heart Math Institute is even doing research on how our own magnetic field can be entrained with the field of the earth, the electromagnetic field of the earth. So this is absolutely mind-blowing to think about. And when I start talking about quantum biology, that's usually the first question. What are you talking about? What is quantum biology, right? We've heard of quantum physics, we've heard of biology, but this marriage is relatively new. And it's a new emerging field that is looking at quantum phenomenon in a living system. But really what it's looking at is it is exploring how the flow of electrons or the flow of protons or photons of light or phonons from sound, how these really small pieces impact the really small pieces in our body, our proteins, our enzymes, our cell membranes, our mitochondria, our DNA, and how that gives rise to what we see with symptoms or on a lab value sheet. When I was in school, and it's still being taught across the world, is that our health is really depending on this chemical mechanical model of how the body works. If you have health, it's from a chemical balance, or disease is a chemical imbalance or a mechanical misalignment, right? There's truth to that, but it's not the complete picture. And that's where quantum biology comes in. It looks like there is this language of frequency in the body. And that is what's giving rise to these things we see in a doctor's office. And it makes a lot of sense because when you look at the chemical mechanical model, you're looking at this allosteric model where there's keys randomly bumping around a cell. They find their receptor by chance, by random chance. They unlock that receptor and action can happen. Well, we're trillions and trillions of cells, and each one of our cells is completing hundreds of thousands of tasks each second. Some researchers estimate it in the millions. That mathematically is impossible with this idea of random collision, of randomness, random mutation. And that's where quantum biology comes in. It's like two tuning forks set at the same frequency. If I strike one, the one across the room will start to ring as well. That frequency information and energy travels much faster than a chemical spreading through the body or this random collision model that we have. And it doesn't negate that model. Quantum biology talks about the beginnings of that, the initiation for that to happen, being in frequency, in vibration, in oscillation. It's absolutely incredible.
Thank you. I love that you explained that because it's not that easy for people to understand. So thank you for making it simple. Now, what I took from that is a few things. One is when you talk about this energetic field, the magnetic field that connects us to the ground. To me, right away, it's grounding, right? When we feel like our chi, our energy around us, which we are a magnetic chi, magnetic field, we feel at a source. We can just go ground ourselves with the earth, bare feet. And that's the first connection to that magnetic field. And then the other one you talked about that I like is obviously tuning forks and vibration therapy, because we use that a lot in Chinese medicine as well. And to try to really connect, like you said, it's a connection of two entity, two magnetic field. And for us would be chi, right? And when I teach students for the first time about chi, on the first lecture, I could see some people specifically that have scientific background look at me, their eyes are glazing over, and they're like, what is she talking about? They're okay with the yin yang because it's opposite and it's completion, and they kind of get it. Once you start getting into chi, I could see their body language, they're going backwards. And so I always say, when you walk into a room and there's 20 people, everybody has a chi or has a magnetic field or an energy about them. And sometimes you connect with that person so well, but you don't know why. And you didn't connect with another person that it's not a bad person. It's just you and that person, the connection wasn't there. That's energy. That's it. You don't have to see something to know that it's there. So that's the second thing that I wanted to share that people have a hard time with, but it's not hard because it's everywhere. We all feel it. However, a lot of people have forgotten to be intuitive. They've forgotten to use their own energetic field to feel the world around them. And that's when I think for me, disease starts to set in because there's no connection. You're not connecting anymore. Or if you're connecting with an energetic field that is not going to complement you or make you feel better. Like if you are connecting to a lot of Wi-Fi or those kind of things, right? So that changes everything. I wanted to share that perspective from Chinese medicine. And then you said something else that I like too. You talked about, nature, and TCM is all about connecting to nature and observing nature and putting it light at the right time with our rhythm, because that's also a very much TCM in our lives right now. Everybody stays up till midnight and lives in the dark. They work at the mall where it's in the dark, and then they come home, it's in the dark, and there's no light. Diagnosis has to be the hardest part of Chinese medicine. We always say there is no wrong treatment in TCM, only the wrong diagnosis. This is why I created my second book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy, to make it easy to grasp using a lot of colorful visuals. I have included all Chinese medicine foundation, yin yang theory, five elements, zong fu organ, all of it. All diagnosis, of course, including tongue and pulse, practice case studies to help you improve your skills, as well as give you access to my online fillable intake form to use with your own patients. You can download the digital version on any device, and it comes with many video links to complement it. Or if, like me, you like to read a real book, the hard copy ships all over the world. Before you invest in this book, you can download a sample of it to make sure that the format of the book is everything you were looking for, because I want to make sure that you are absolutely benefiting from it. Listen to what people have to say about my green book, Chinese Medicine Made Easy. The more I read, the more I like this book. It is simple to follow. All information is super organized with great pictures, makes memorizing a lot easier. This book will definitely make my learning a lot more productive. Yay! So happy to hear that. You've done it again. You are amazing. I wish we had your resources 20 years ago back in TCM school. This also makes my day, because this is why I do what I've been doing with AcuPro Academy for quite a few years now, to support everyone. Check out the links in the show notes below, or go to my website, acuproacademy.com, and click the shop tab on the menu bar and get your copy today. From a scientific quantum biology perspective, how do we need this light, and what does it do to the body?
Definitely. It is so important. It was 2017 that 3 researchers were awarded the Nobel Prize for their work on chronobiology. And that's just a big word that means, how does light impact life or living systems? And what they've found is every single cell in our body is circadian driven. It is meant to be aligned with the rhythm of the sun. And there's so many things we could talk about with light, what happens when light touches our skin, different colors of light. But from a circadian rhythm perspective, when I go outside in the morning and light enters my eye and hits that thin layer of cells at the back of the eye called the retina, there's cells in that retina that are rich in melanopsin, and they act as sensors for blue light and ultraviolet light. And when that light enters my eye, and I'm not talking about looking directly at the sun, right? People ask this all the time. Oh, I can't see the sunrise. I'm in an urban setting, or I live on this side of the hill or the mountain. I can't see the sunrise. Look up in the sky. It holds all of that spectrum of light. And so when I go out in the morning and I see sunrise, it's rich in red and infrared energy. It signals to my body that I'm safe. It signals to my nervous system that I am safe, that I don't have to have a huge spike of cortisol or adrenaline, these stress hormones. It can gradually rise. As the sun starts to gradually rise in the morning, it increases in the amount of blue light that's available. And that tells our body to do a bunch of different things. It tells our body to release cortisol, that hormone that tells our body, okay, it's time to get moving. It's morning. It releases dopamine, serotonin, these feel good, motivating hormones. It allows our body to set up our sex hormone cascade. So our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, it sets up our metabolic cascade as well. And that's just the beginning. If almost every single cell in our body is circadian driven, then as that light hits the cells in the back of our eye and the retina, that light turns into an electrical signal. And that signal is translated into our hypothalamus in the center of our brain in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that's our master circadian clock. And as that information comes in through the eye, it is turned into an electrical signal that goes to all these what are called peripheral circadian clocks in the body, in our cells. That means that our cardiovascular system has a circadian rhythm. It's entrained with the light in our environment. Our respiratory system, our digestion. We're talking about all of these different biological functions in the body being entrained with the light in our environment. So going out in the morning light is really important. Going out multiple times throughout the day in the afternoon and getting that light in our eyes, getting it on our skin. And you're right with the comparison between indoor lighting and outdoor lighting. We have most of our lighting coming from LED lights, which have a very narrow band of blue light. And that is confusing to our biology. If I were to pull out a spectrometer and measure the lighting in a modern office environment, it would show a very small peak in the blue zone, and it would show a diminished intensity. If I go outside, I'm here in Oregon, and usually it's cloudy and gray in the wintertime. If I were to go outside, even on a dreary day, the amount of light is so much greater than it is even in that really bright LED lighting that we have in some office spaces or like those warehouse or at the mall, right? Where it feels bright, but really it's a fraction of what's happening outside. We're getting the full spectrum of visible light. Infrared light is present. It's nutrient dense. If you think of it as light being a nutrient, we are so deficient in infrared energy, in red light. And that's what the outdoor natural lighting of the sun, regardless of whether it's a beautiful sunny day or it's a cloudy gray day, depending on where we are and the season, like right now, I'm not getting any ultraviolet B light here until probably March, but still, my environment outside is rich in red and infrared energy. It's rich in intensity. It's a much more dense nutrient of light than any indoor lighting would be. And then the yin yang cycle of the sun, right? Where we're getting that rise, our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our biological functions are being turned on as the sun begins to go down, as it sets, as darkness ensues. Our body has a bunch of different functions that happen in the evening when it's dark, right? Melatonin is released from the pineal gland, and that tells our body to rest deeply. It's a master antioxidant. It goes around putting out inflammatory fires. It impacts our mitochondrial function. Our mitochondria are huge for messaging. They provide the energy of the body. It helps with a deep, restful sleep and the repair. It scavenges those cells that are damaged as well. So this alignment that we are offered by the rhythm of the sun to get out, to get all that light nutrition, to have all those functions of daylight, and then to respect the darkness in the evening. I lower my lights. I move to something like a salt lamp. I lower the intensity. I switch to something that's more orange and red toned, like a fire would be or a candle. And that doesn't block that melatonin release from the pineal gland so that I'm able to sleep. I'm able to have all those functions that we see in the thyroid and growth hormone, our immune system that happen in darkness. So it's really this invitation to return to a relationship with the sun that we've always had and that modern life has done an incredible job of moving us away from.
I love that you said light nutrient. That's just a beautiful way to look at it because it's like I want to grab it and it's going to penetrate my body and nourish me so I feel better. And it's funny you say that because most every night in winter, not in summer, but in winter, we sit, my husband and I, by our fireplace and we just sit there and we talk. And that's the last thing we see before we go to bed. It's that fire, that red light, which is so calming. And we always sleep so well. Plus, it's warm, of course, with the fire, it just feels warm. So all those natural senses like light and sound and the visual of it, looking at a fireplace, you feel calm. You never feel like you're on a stress level. It calms you down, right? I really like that we look at the senses really in a way and see how they are going to nourish our body if we go back, like you said, to our own natural circadian rhythm and being in with nature. So at the beginning, when we first started, I said we connected through Instagram, specifically through a reel you published that a lot of acupuncturists tagged me in. And I want to read what the reel is about. You don't need the visual if you're listening to the podcast, but we'll put the link in the show notes to the reel so you can go and share it because it's fantastic. And on this visual, that is nothing to worry about if you don't see it, but on this visual, this is what Dr. Clinton wrote. Our fascia, the newly discovered primovascular system, and the water that lines them form a network of collagen tubules that communicate with light, sound, and frequency information. This vast network connects to every structure in the body, and compelling research suggests it could be the anatomical site of all the meridians. Woo! This is why people tag me. This is why I ask you, can I share this? Because this is so fabulous. And it's one of your most obviously popular reel. It did really well on my platform as well. So I want you to explain to us the connection to the meridian, to the fascia, how that came about.
Yes, it is fascinating. I assume your audience is familiar with the meridian system, right? With this system in which chi and energy flow, right?
That's all
And
they know. Right. That's all I want to know. The meridian, the chi, and the flow. This is my jam. So go for it.
Absolutely, as it should be. So incredible. And this is something that ancient cultures had in common, right? We look at the Nadi system of Ayurvedic medicine, and Egyptian medicine, in the Americas as well. Just this reverence for the flow of energy in the body. And the meridians are mapping that out. And what researchers have done is they have really cultivated a new way of looking at the fascia. So when I was in naturopathic medical school, fascia was like that thin white covering that you would remove from an organ to study the real thing, right? That useless scaffolding that's just in the way. We now know that the fascial system creates a body-wide network. It's like our bones are a loom, right? And the fascia is this fabric stretched throughout our body, and it's connecting to every single structure in the body. It can actually go into a cell, into the cytoskeleton of a cell, creating this communication network. And when we look at fascia, it's mostly connective tissue, and connective tissue is mostly collagen. And when you look at the formation of collagen, the makeup of collagen, we're used to visualizing a double helix from a DNA, but collagen creates these triple helixes. They're called tropocollagen nanotubules. They're really small tubes of collagen. And they create this network that's starting at the surface of our skin and going to our most internal layers in the body. And what we see is this incredible relationship with the collagen fascial network and the water that lines it. Professor Gerald Pollack and his team out of the University of Washington were the first to discover a new phase of liquid water. But this is something that researchers have been talking about for over a century. And what they found was if water comes to a water-loving surface, like the fascia. It changes in structure. It becomes more gel-like. It becomes viscous. It has a different structure. It takes on a negative electrical charge. And as it's building, it pushes out a hydrogen or a proton and creates this zone of negatively charged water that's right at the surface of the fascia. And then right outside of that is this positively charged zone of water. And that separation of charge, just like the separation of charge in a 9-volt battery, creates potential energy. I call it the water battery of the body. And Pollock, he first was looking at synthetic water loving or hydrophilic surfaces and this new phase of water. His book is called The Fourth Phase of Water and talks all about the science. But this is something that's being researched around the globe. It's an international effort. And what he did was he soon turned his sights away from synthetic Naphion onto natural substances, cellulose and collagen. He took a collagen tubule and he placed it in water. Now, we are water beings. By weight, we're 70% water. Molecularly, if we were to line up all the molecules, because water is such a small molecule, 98% of our body is water. But this water in the body's taking on this different structure. He calls it exclusion zone water, liquid crystalline water, plasma water. Some people call it cell-bound water. And he took this tube of collagen, put it in water to replicate a living system, to replicate our body, and exposed it to infrared energy. And infrared energy seems to be what builds this zone of water. And what he saw is, okay, you've got that tube of collagen in the water, you've got that exposed to infrared energy, and boom, that liquid crystal water is forming on the outside of the tubule. Not only that, it's forming on the inside of the tubule. So you've got this water battery forming on the inside of this collagen tubule. And as long as there's infrared energy present, there's a flow of liquid, of particles, and of protons. And we're used to thinking of electricity as the flow of electrons, right? We plug our appliances in, those little electrons go, they excite the system, that's electricity. That's not hard to wrap our heads around, but not a lot of people talk about proticity and how the flow of protons creates energy. So now we have this view of the fascial system as these tubules lined with water on the outside and the inside, and with infrared energy, they can create this flow of energy and information. Now, I also have to say, I know this is a long answer, but I just can't leave parts out. I have to also mention that the fascial network is piezoelectric. So just like a quartz crystal, when we deform a quartz crystal, it creates an electrical current. Our fascial network is the same way. When we deform it, it creates an electrical current and it creates infrared energy. Now, your audience is very familiar with the deformation of fascia that happens from acupressure or acupuncture. So you've got these sites, these meridian anatomical sites that match up with our fascial network, with the premovascular network. And that network, when it is deformed, can create a flow of electricity, infrared energy, and power this flow of liquid crystalline water, this water battery, this flow of information and energy. So it is quite compelling and exciting to think about how this might be the site of it. And am I 100% attached to that? No, I think there's magic we have yet to discover, right? But it's incredible to see the advances. Mei-Wan Ho has done amazing research. There's research out of China and Japan and Korea looking at this similarity between our fascial network and our meridian system and the premovascular system. It's fascinating.
I love it. I know it was a big masterclass lesson on how the body functions, specifically the water part, because we are water. And this is exactly when you said 70% water. I'm like, even more. And then you went like way over 90%, which makes sense. And it also makes sense because when we are aging, our water system gets depleted and depleted and depleted. And then the collagen doesn't show on the skin, and we start having the wrinkle, the dry skin, and everything dry. So to me, it makes so much sense. And this is from a perspective of science, but also Chinese medicine. So the connection, like you said, there is so much to be excited about what is yet to come, because there's so much we know, but there's so much more we don't know. So that means there's a lot we can have fun with. There's a lot that people can go into and start researching and getting excited about. And then we sit here and we get the outcome and we're like, wow, this is amazing. And, for years of work that people have put in it. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and explain this, to give us a little bit of a taste about quantum biology. I know people can find you at Dr. Catherine Clinton on social media, but we'll have the link to your website as well, because you do teach quantum biology as well to kind of help people understand. Is there any final thought you'd like to leave us with?
Well, I appreciate your invitation to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I think what you are doing, what the TCM community is doing, is so important. And I am so excited that we're finally at a point where science can start validating this stuff, right? This was something that the scientific revolution was like, okay, we can't see it under a microscope. It doesn't exist. Quackery, right? And now we're at a point where our instrumentation is sophisticated enough to see some of these things. And it's really exciting to come full circle back and get that validation. Not that we need it, but it allows an opportunity for it to spread to the people that do need it, because people do need it. And so it's an exciting time. And thank you for letting me share.
Well, thank you for coming and educating all of us. Have a fantastic day in beautiful, beautiful Oregon. And we'll keep seeing each other online, and I'll keep seeing what you share, which is always little bites, which I love, because then it just gives you a little bit of an idea, and then you can kind of go deeper and look into whatever you give a little deeper. Because I know you talk about different things like light and color and so many different things that affect our whole human being when it comes to the biology of who we are. So thank you again, Dr. Clinton.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I truly hope you benefited from this episode, and I would love for you to share it with a friend that may benefit from it as well. Follow the show, leave a review, and if you want more, go to my website, acuproacademy.com. I have tons of resources there with treatment protocols, case studies, free courses, and so much more. And connect with me on all social media at Acupro Academy. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and LinkedIn and TikTok. And no matter what, keep rocking it using TCM. Please listen to the disclaimer, because the AcuPro Show podcast and material shared through AcuPro Academy, which is a subdivision of Natural Health Sense Incorporated, are designed solely for educational and entertainment purposes. The utilization of information from this podcast or any associated material is at the user's discretion and risk. This content is not meant to replace the guidance of an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor, medical doctor, physician, or any qualified professional, nor is it a substitute for proper diagnosis or treatment. Users are strongly advised not to ignore or postpone seeking medical advice for any existing medical condition with their healthcare professional regarding any health concerns.